I can't be a wizard.
From casual words to epic final phrases, these Harry Potter characters had totally surprising arrays of opening and closing lines. Which character does a total 180 in attitude from their first line to their last line? How about whose lines are about the boy who lived? Let's have a look.
I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley. I'm Harry Potter.
When we meet the boy who lived, he's obedient as can be.
Yes, Aunt Petunia.
We get to watch his journey from young, orphan boy to leader in the wizarding world and father to his son. His last line,
"Ready?"
feels like a very appropriate end, passing his legacy on to the next generation. Ron's first line is appropriately addressed to Harry.
Excuse me. Do you mind? Everywhere else is full.
Here, we get to see the beginning of their lifelong friendship. His final line at the end of the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is the perfect demonstration of just how far the friends have come together.
Most powerful wand in the world. With that, we'd be invincible.
Ron suggesting that having the Elder Wand would make the trio invincible depicts just how strong their relationship is, as well as his sense of ambition. Off the bat of the first film, we see Hermione as a sweet, helpful young witch looking out for others.
Has anyone seen a toad?
By the end of the movies, her final line is very simple.
We?
While the line is short, it demonstrates how she's grown to be a confident and strong witch, and that she has no problem calling Ron out. Ginny's very first and last lines are both to do with Harry Potter himself.
Good luck.
First, we see the shy young girl amazed by the boy who lived. By the time we get to see her in the final film, she's a woman who's really come into her own and found the love of her life.
No! No!
Even though she thought he was gone in this instance. Albus Dumbledore's first line is pretty functional, but it also gives us a hint as to how all-knowing he could be.
I should have known that you would be here, Professor McGonagall.
By the final film, after Dumbledore has passed on, we get a line that really captures how integral his wisdom has been, guiding Harry over the years.
Why should that mean that it's not real?
Then we have his brother, we hear about for years, but first meet near the end of the film saga.
Bloody fools. What were you thinking coming here?
Both his first and last lines give us a lot of information about the past. His initial scolding, and then, with his last words,
He gave her everything. But time.
we're able to understand why he and Albus had such a strained relationship. While both Hagrid's first and final lines are simple, we get to see how significant his relationships with many important wizards are.
Professor Dumbledore, sir? Professor McGonagall?
There is definitely a connection between these two, since the first is the beginning of Hagrid addressing helping Harry Potter, and in the end, even though he thinks Harry has died, all he can bring himself to say is Harry.
Harry.
It may be one word, but it's packed with emotion. When it comes to Sirius Black, his lines do a total 180.
No, only one would die tonight.
We see him go from battling against Harry to supporting the boy, even from the land of the dead.
Wait, you see.
These lines really exhibit the course and strength of their relationship over the years. Neville's growth over the series of the films is pretty monumental. His first line is the perfect depiction of the bumbling, awkward boy we meet. His transformation to true leader with a heart of gold is obvious with one of the most powerful lines in the final film.
For all of us! It's not over!
This pretty much sums up how great a friend and wizard Neville grows up to be. Both Luna's first and final words are addressed to Harry.
You're not going mad.
Is a perfect intro for her character, an odd girl who is much wiser than she seems. In her final line, we get to see how close she and Harry have become.
It's very impressive, isn't it?
As well as the fact that Luna is keenly observant and often providing answers for Harry when he needed them most. Professor McGonagall is one of the first Hogwarts teachers we meet, and she definitely sets the impression of a wise woman in charge.
Good evening, Professor Dumbledore.
Her final line of the movies is quite different, and absolutely one of the most epic that she has.
I've always wanted to use that spell.
We get to see a different side of her personality, which only makes us love her more. Funnily enough, both Draco's first and final lines are addressed to Harry Potter.
It's true then. What they're saying on the train.
While Draco was never Harry's best friend, he wasn't all bad. Both his lines are kind of confrontational, but his last line somewhat inadvertently helps Harry.
Understand me. Know what I mean?
So we get to see how Draco goes from Harry Potter hater to a wizard who helps Harry, even if it's not entirely on purpose. Voldemort's first haunting line depicts pretty much what we expect, an obsession with destroying the boy who lived.
Use the boy.
The fact that the line is done as a voiceover only adds to the fact that Voldemort's presence is powerful and vast. By the time his last line comes around, he's still the evil villain we've known him to be all along, as his last words are as vicious and dark as he is.
I killed Snape.
The Weasley twins are pretty much the same from the beginning to the end.
He's not Fred, I am. Honestly, woman, you call yourself our mother.
What comes through most powerfully is their relationship with each other, whether they're being foolish tricksters playing a prank, or two brothers taking on every tragedy life throws at them by each other's side.
Yeah. Me too.
Yet another character with both first and last lines about the boy who lived. Both her opening and final words really demonstrate her obsession with ending his life.
Itchy? Bitty? Baby.
The fact that in both lines she refers to him as either a baby or boy shows just how much she thought of him as a child.
Boy. Is he dead?
Making her vile acts against him that much worse. Lupin's first line shows us just how helpful he is, reaching out to Harry when he's in need.
Here, eat this. It'll help. It's all right, it's chocolate.
Unfortunately, his final words in the film come when he's no longer alive, but it speaks to his character and the legacy that he leaves behind.
One day, you'll understand.
While Cedric Diggory's first line doesn't leave too much of an impression, his joyful smile and charm definitely do.
This strapping young lad must be Cedric, am I right? Sir.
In the end, his final words against Voldemort really sum up his bravery.
Who are you? What do you want?
Making this a perfect final line for his character. Arthur and Molly Weasley, two of the strongest, funniest, most supportive people we got to know in the wizarding world. Arthur's first and final lines are addressing groups.
Morning, Weasleys!
First his family, then the Order of Phoenix group.
2, 3.
We see him as a leader and team player from beginning to end. Looking back to the Philosopher's Stone, we meet Molly with her sassy remark.
Packed with muggles, of course. Come on. Platform 9 3/4 this way.
When we get to her final words in the Deathly Hallows Part 2, we get a very different version of sass, and we are here for it.
Not my daughter, you.
Oh, the Malfoys. Both Lucius and Narcissa are nasty characters, but as indicated by both their first and last lines in the films, their son Draco is their primary focus. Lucius first speaks in the second film.
Now, Draco, play nicely.
His final words are a public plea to Draco to stand on their side with the Dark Lord.
Draco.
We don't hear Narcissa speak until the Half-Blood Prince, and when she does, it's in preparation to speak to Snape about protecting Draco.
I know I ought not to be here.
Her final words, very similar to her husband, are a plea for Draco to stand with them.
Come.
From the first moment we meet him, Dobby's kindness shines through.
Harry Potter.
We see an elf who's been mistreated, but finally overcomes and becomes a free elf, though always faithful to those he loves. His final line before he passes is devastating, but also a perfect example of just how loyal he is.
To be with his friend, Harry Potter.
We only get to see Nymphadora Tonks for 2 of the films. Her first line is pretty indicative of her spunk and humor.
I clean these muggles.
Tonks, for God's sake.
Her life is taken too soon, but her final word is a simple one.
I wouldn't be standing here without him.
While she may not have appeared in the films for very long, she definitely still made a strong impact. Filch, one of the grumpiest squibs there ever was. His main role in the films is in relation to the students of Hogwarts, and his first line coming through the crowd is pretty spot on for this.
What's going on out? Come on, make way, make way.
Throughout the movies, he continues to blubber on until his very last line when he, yet again, mumbles to a group of students. Just before we meet Professor Slughorn, we meet this armchair. A surprising intro, but it says a lot about his skills as a wizard.
Merlin's beard! No need to disfigure me, Albus.
His final line to Harry is loaded, telling us a lot about both his own past and the reality of how much of a monster the Dark Lord had been for so many years.
No idea what he was like even then.
Her shrill and condescending tone comes straight through in her first line.
I'm sure I must have misunderstood you.
We see Umbridge become more and more villainous over the course of the films. Her final suspicious words come from inside the Ministry of Magic, shortly after which she's duped and stupefied.
What on earth are you doing, Albert?
Spunky Seamus comes out of the gates in Philosopher's Stone with a pretty straightforward explanation of who he is.
I'm half and half. My dad's a muggle.
In the end, he puts his pyrotechnic skills to good use, and we see the glimmer in his eyes that makes him a great wizard.
I can bring it down.
Dean Thomas's first word is slick, in unison with his classmates, demonstrating his role as a member of the Gryffindor team. His final words are simple, but they just reinforce his commitment to his fellow classmates and friends.
Where is it?
Some of these lines are so surprising, especially since many characters appear again afterwards and don't actually end up speaking. Many of their journeys really come through perfectly with their initial and final dialogue. Which first and last lines were your favorite?